Donald Trump, as you know, has talked about making Canada the 51st state, referred to the president or prime minister of Canada as Governor Trudeau. He's no longer the prime minister. Do we really want Canada to be the 51st state? There are a lot of things to think about. Canada is on track for its worst decline in 40 years, according to Canada's Fraser Institute, which is a free market think tank. And they say that unlike previous recessions, Canada is not recovering this time. Something is broken. According to the Canadian Financial Post, since 2019, Canada has had the worst growth out of 50 developed countries. Inflation-adjusted Canadian wages have not risen since 2016. I repeat, adjusted for inflation, Canadian wages have been flat since 2016. Canada's per-person real GDP is falling. And the U.S. is 75% of Canada's exports, which means tariffs could really pose a major, major problem for the Canadian economy. Incomes in Canada are at West Virginia level. House prices are at Los Angeles level, and Canadian taxes are halfway to the Soviet Union level. It is not rare for a middle-class family in Canada, according to the Mises Institute, which is a libertarian think tank, it is not rare for a middle-class family in Canada to pay half of their income in taxes. Canada's official food inflation is up 25%, energy up 30% since the pandemic, thanks to the carbon tax, because Lord knows Canada needs to do something about climate change. Sales tax in most Canadian provinces is between 13 and 15% on everything you buy. Canadian bankruptcy filings jumped 40% last year. Half of Canadians have zero emergency savings. Violent crime rate since 2014, up 40%. A poll of Canadians found that 7 in 10 Canadians agree that, quote, Canada is broken. 8 in 10 between the ages of 18 and 35 agree with the following statement: Canada is broken. 42% of Canadians are considering moving to another country. So the question is, what's changed? 2 words: Justin Trudeau. Specifically his campaign to convert Canada from a mixed economy like our country to a government-dominated economy like that of the European Union. Under Trudeau, business investment plunged by 1/3, while government spending doubled to almost half of GDP. Government workers in Canada are growing almost 4 times faster than the private sector. I repeat, government workers in Canada are growing almost 4 times faster than the private sector, and 1 in 3 Canadians now works for government and making 30% more in salary and benefits than the average taxpayer. 1.7 million Canadians, roughly 1 in 10 households, are on welfare. So imagine if Canada were a state. Imagine an election. The reason the limited government people running in Canada lose elections is because when government is providing livelihoods for 40% of the voters, you've got to win 80% of the remaining 60% to win elections. Tough to do. Now, if Canada were the 51st state, it would increase our population by 12%. However, when it comes to national security, America has 20 times the number of active duty servicemen that Canada employs, spends 22 times more on its military budget. Canada has long benefited from NATO. However, its defense spending puts it on par with Argentina and Algeria. Since 2010, Canadian growth has languished at European levels, averaging about 1.6% annually compared to over 2% here. Canada's unemployment rate, 6.7% compared to 4.2% for Americans, which means taking over Canada's country would mean a disproportionately higher number of welfare payments going out to these new fellow citizens. If Canada were to enter as a state, it would almost certainly elect Democrats or politicians aligned with Democrats. That would mean 2 more Democrat senators in Washington, D.C., and even worse in the House of Representatives, where at current levels, there would be 1 new congressperson for every 780,000 Canadians, or at least 51 new House members. Most, if not all, would likely be Democrats. So do you really want Canada to be the 51st state, Mr. Trump? I urge you to think long and hard about this.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.